I never imagined I'd find myself working at a place like Hawthorn Manor, but life has a way of leading you into situations you never expect. I grew up in a small town, much like the one in the stories. Quiet, peaceful, where nothing ever seemed to change. My mom, a hard-working woman, did everything she could to raise me on her own. She was a teacher, but she always seemed to be working extra jobs to make ends meet. It wasn't easy, but we made it work. She taught me the value of hard work and staying humble. When I was 30, life took a turn. My mom was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer, and I moved to the city to take care of her. We didn't have anyone else. It was just the two of us, and that's how we always were. It was tough, but I learned a lot. She passed away after a year of treatments, and after her death, I didn't know where to go or what to do. Everything felt hollow. But I didn't want to go back to my old life, so I stayed here in the city. I found work doing various odd jobs, anything to get by. Painting fences, fixing roofs, small tasks that kept me busy. Then, I came across a strange job listing one day for a gardener at Hawthorn Manor. The listing sounded like it was written in a different era. The pay was decent, and they promised a place to stay, but what intrigued me most was the isolation they offered. It felt perfect. Peaceful, quiet, and away from the rest of the world. Hawthorn Manor had been around for hundreds of years. It sat on a large piece of land, its spires rising above the trees. The gates were iron, thick and rusted, but the grounds were pristine. I first laid eyes on the manor as I drove up its long driveway. I could feel the weight of the place, the history, the energy of the land. It was beautiful, but there was something about it that made my skin crawl. The place had its own pulse, a steady rhythm that hummed in the air. I wasn't scared, not really, but I could tell something was off. The people around here had strange things to say about the place. "It's cursed," they'd whisper, shaking their heads. "People disappear around there," they'd warn. But I wasn't one for superstition. Ghosts and curses didn't scare me. Not after everything I'd been through. So, I took the job. When I met O'Connor, the caretaker, I knew I had made the right choice. O'Connor had been working at Hawthorn Manor longer than anyone, possibly even longer than the house had been standing. He had a face that was both kind and weathered, eyes sharp like he had seen too much but never let it break him. O'Connor had a rule he lived by. Don't ask questions about the house, and don't disturb things that don't belong to you. At first, I thought he was just a paranoid old man, but I quickly learned to heed his warnings. The first day I worked in the garden, I saw something moving in the shadows, a dark shape that darted just out of sight. I froze. It was a man, but there was something off about him. His features were blurry, almost like he was made of fog. I turned away quickly, chalking it up to the odd lighting. Over time, I met the others who lived at Hawthorn Manor. There was Lady Isolde, the eccentric healer, and her crystal ball, which she kept on a pedestal in the grand library. Her presence was strange, like she existed on a different frequency than the rest of us. Lady Isolde would tell me cryptic things as I watered the garden. "The roses bloom under the gaze of the moon," she'd say, or, "There's always a price to pay for peace." Then there was Samuel, the ghost of the old master's butler. Samuel was a tall man with a formal air about him, his long coat always impeccably tailored. But his eyes, those eyes were hollow, like he'd seen so much suffering that he had no capacity left for warmth. He would wander the halls of the manor, fixing things that didn't need fixing, talking to no one but himself. But the one who intrigued me the most was Henry, the resident ghost of the manor's previous master. Henry had been an inventor in his time, an ambitious man who believed he could change the world. There were stories about him. How he was driven mad by his own creations. His passion had turned to obsession, and the lines between genius and madness had blurred. He had built machines that defied logic, contraptions that could bend time and space. But he had failed, and his inventions had only led to tragedy. There were whispers that Henry had locked himself away in the East Wing after a great fire destroyed half of the house. It was a dark part of the house that no one ever talked about. When I asked O'Connor about it, he simply said, "No one goes to the East Wing. Trust me, you don't want to know what's there." The house was filled with oddities. There was an ancient clock in the hallway that never ticked in time with the world outside. Sometimes, it would strike midnight in the middle of the afternoon. There was the old music room where the piano would play itself at night, the soft notes of a haunting lullaby filling the empty halls. And the mirrors. The mirrors seemed to show you things that weren't there, reflections of past events or glimpses of future tragedies. The first few months passed quietly. I worked in the garden, trimming hedges and planting new flowers, trying to make the grounds look more inviting. There was something about Hawthorn Manor's garden that felt alive in a way that didn't make sense. The flowers always seemed to bloom even when they shouldn't, and the trees had a strange, silent energy. I'd often find myself lost in my work, listening to the wind through the branches and the distant, almost imperceptible hum of the manor. One evening, as the sun was setting behind the distant hills, I ventured deeper into the woods behind the manor. It was a place I had been warned to avoid, but curiosity got the better of me. The trees here were older, their trunks gnarled and twisted, like they had been standing for centuries. It was quiet, too quiet, and I felt something shift in the air. That's when I saw it. A small, overgrown path leading to a dilapidated gate. The gate was rusted, the paint peeling, and beyond it, there was a clearing. I stepped closer, my heart pounding in my chest. There was something in that clearing, something watching me. I could feel its eyes on me, though I couldn't see anything. Suddenly, the ground beneath me shifted, and I felt myself falling, tumbling into darkness. When I woke, I was lying on cold stone, my head throbbing. I looked around and found myself in a small, underground room. The walls were covered with strange symbols and drawings. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of something old and forgotten. A voice whispered from the shadows. "You've found the truth now." I jumped, my heart racing. A figure emerged from the darkness. A man tall and gaunt, with dark eyes that seemed to burn through me. "I am the keeper," he said. "You have disturbed what should not be disturbed." The keeper explained that the manor was built on ancient land, a place of great power and equally great danger. The spirits that roamed the halls were tied to the land, their souls trapped in a never-ending cycle. Henry, the former master, had uncovered something he shouldn't have, a forbidden knowledge that allowed him to bind the souls of the dead to the house. He had done it for love, for a woman he could never have. But in doing so, he had cursed everyone who stepped foot on the grounds. The keeper warned me that if I didn't leave, I would be bound to the manor, just like the others. But I refused to leave. The ghosts here weren't just spirits, they were trapped, unable to move on. I decided I would help them find peace, even if it meant I had to face the truth of what had been done. In the days that followed, I learned more about the manor's history. I spoke with Lady Isolde, who told me of Henry's sorrow and madness. I met with Samuel, the butler, who shared stories of the house before the fire. And then there were the machines, Henry's creations, still locked away in the East Wing. I had to face the truth of the house, the truth that it was a place of both creation and destruction. In the end, I found the key to freeing the souls of Hawthorn Manor. It wasn't through violence or confrontation, but through understanding. I had to release Henry from his self-imposed prison and give him a chance to make things right. The house trembled with the force of the release, the walls shaking, and the skies outside darkening. But when the dust settled, the spirits of Hawthorn Manor were finally free. The mansion, once alive with the energy of the trapped souls, fell silent. And as I stood there, looking out over the now peaceful grounds, I knew I had found my purpose. The mansion had its secrets, but for now they were buried, safe behind the veil of time. As the years passed, I continued to tend to the garden, the flowers blooming under my care. The ghosts of Hawthorn Manor were gone, but the land remained, quiet and still. And though the house still stood, with its many secrets hidden behind walls, I knew that for now I was safe. And so, I worked, my only companion the hum of the earth beneath my feet and the whisper of the wind through the trees, content in the knowledge that the story of Hawthorn Manor had finally come to an end.